Hello again, everybody. As always, this is Antonio speaking the truth. I want to thank you again for clicking on my video and watching and subscribing to my page. So in case you missed my last video, I basically introduced and broke down who the 12 tribes of Israel are from the Bible. So in case you missed it, just to give you a quick recap, 12 tribes consist of 12 nations or nationality of people that exist in the world today. So who they are, that's basically the so-called Negroes of America, the Jamaicans, Trinidadians, and people of the West Indies, the Haitians, the Puerto Ricans, the Cubans, the Mexicans, the Hawaiians and Samoans, the Seminole Indians and Aborigines of Australia, the Panamanians, Guatemalans, and Colombians, the Dominicans, the people of Brazil, Argentina, and Venezuela, and the North American Indians. Now, obviously, there's still remnants of each of these tribes of people that are still scattered throughout the world, but primarily that's who they are and where they are today. Now, every nation or nationality of people can actually trace their lineage or their bloodline back to the tribe that's in the Bible. Today, I want to simply focus on the so-called Caucasian race. Now, for starters, there's no such thing as white people. There's no such thing as black people. There are only different shades of brown people, and then there's red people. Now, Adam was obviously the first man, and he was actually made from the dirt or soil. Then, obviously, from him came Eve. Now, I'm not saying that Adam and Eve were Negroes. I'm not saying that they were black. I'm just simply explaining that after Adam and Eve and all the way through after the time of Noah, every person, every nationality was a shade of brown. So the question is, where do white people come from? Now, white people did not actually exist until the time of Esau. Esau actually means red. So that's where that race of white people came from. Now Esau, he was the firstborn son of Isaac. And he was called Esau because the blood in his body could be shown or seen through his skin. Now that was the first time in history that any child had ever been born like that. Because like I said, up until that time, every child had been born with brown skin. So that's why they made a big deal about explaining the difference in his skin color. Now later, and obviously this story, please go and look it up and read yourself. This can be found in Genesis, the 25th chapter. Now later Esau, his name was changed to Edom because he loved to eat red or raw meat. So from then on, all descendants of Esau, they were called Edomites. Like I said, so this was the beginning of the so-called white race. If you're white or white complexion or white race, doesn't matter if you're Russian, German, Scottish, doesn't matter. If you're from a white race, you're an Edomite. Now knowing someone's biblical nationality is important for further understanding of biblical prophecy, just like I mentioned before in my last video. Same reason why understanding who Israel is important. Now the story of Jacob and Esau is extremely significant when it comes to understanding the Bible. Jacob and Esau were brothers that were actually fighting in their mother's womb before they were even born. So even though Esau was the firstborn, it was actually prophesied that Jacob would receive the birthright. So that's again another reason why they were fighting before they were even born. Now, even though they were brothers, it was also prophesied that they would fight, even though they were brothers in nationality. So that's right. If you break that down, that means Negroes, because they're from the tribe of Jacob, they're from one of Jacob's children, and Esau, which is so-called white race, they actually share the same bloodline. So they're brothers. So white people and black people are actually closer in bloodline DNA than so-called Negroes and so-called Africans. So that term African American is completely way off. The people in Africa, they're actually from the tribe of Ham, and that's a whole other story. Again, I just wanted to point that out because racism is so prevalent, and if people think that blacks and whites should always be fighting each other when we're actually brothers. Now, like I said, the birthright was supposed to go to Esau because he was the firstborn. But actually, Esau sold Jacob his birthright just for one morsel of red stew, of raw meat. So this actually, after that, Esau became extremely jealous of Jacob and actually hated Jacob. So this is where that hatred and jealousy began between Esau and Jacob. Esau actually vowed to kill his brother after that. So the spirit and hatred towards Jacob was that same spirit was shown throughout multiple generations throughout the Bible. All throughout the Bible, you'll see different instances where Esau or Edomites were showing hatred towards Jacob or Israelites. And that same hatred and that spirit of hatred, it still exists today, and like I said, in the form of racism. Now, in spite of Esau's hatred towards Jacob, Israel is still commanded to not be testing Edomite. That's actually in Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 7. So I'm bringing all this information forth about race and nationality, not to cause hatred or anger towards another race, but just to simply bring an understanding of the truth to everyone. Racism is still a problem today, and it still exists. Denying that it doesn't exist does not make it go away. Instead, we need to understand why it exists and where it came from so we know how to battle that spirit. Now, the only way to battle that spirit is to acknowledge who Israel is and acknowledge that Israel is actually God's chosen people. Now, just because, just like if someone found out they were Israel, that does not give them an automatic pass into the kingdom. They still have to follow Christ, his statutes and his commandments. And just because someone finds out that they're an Edomite, that doesn't mean that they're thrown away or looked down upon. There's a place for everyone in God's kingdom. So the next couple videos that are coming out are going to break down and explain that story a little better. But obviously, like I said, if you want to read about it on your own, which I highly encourage you to, that's all in Genesis chapter 25. But like I said, click on the next couple videos. Hopefully that gives you some understanding. I hope watching all my videos give you some type of understanding, or at least makes you think about the Bible in a way that is not taught in mainstream Christianity. So again, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to watch the rest of my videos. And as always, seek the truth.